Hello, all. Welcome back to Dinner for Her, a podcast about historical women with flavor. I am your host, Mandy Walker. Each episode, a friend and I will have a conversation about a woman from the past that they find inspiring. Then we're going to share a meal together themed around that woman's life. It could be her favorite dish, or one that played an important role in her life, or even just something central to her work and culture. Episode 7 is all about the financial genius Muriel Faye Siebert. In addition to being a trailblazer in the economic world, Muriel, or Mickie, as she preferred to be called, which frankly I think was the wiser choice, I can't imagine wanting to go through life being called Muriel, was also a pretty great human being. I am thrilled to get to know her, and that's all thanks to today's co-host, my buddy Kristen Fleming Pyle. She and I met when our kids became friends in middle school. They kind of went in different directions in high school, but we kept each other. Kristen herself is a badass lady with a wonderful head for investing in money, and I cannot wait to dig in with her and hopefully learn something about both Muriel and why financial literacy is so important, especially for women. Kristen, do you want to introduce yourself to the folks?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. My name is Kris Fleming, and I own a company called The Genius Cultivator. I work with women entrepreneurs, specifically as a strategic business consultant, to help them have a fulfilling life, not working like a slave to the business monster that they've built. So help them have a fulfilling life as entrepreneurs while also becoming financially prosperous and achieving financial freedom.
That's awesome. I know that one of the things I'm so excited about with this is that this is so far outside my comfort zone. And I have loved this project because every time I sit down with somebody, I had envisioned that this would, partly, I think I went over this last episode, partly it was for the women in my life, especially after the current political climate really set in. And so many of us are just kind of discouraged about where we are as far as like seemingly having some of our rights rolled back and the future being unknown, etc. And I thought it would be great to be reminded of women from the past who have overcome things and thrived in hard times. And, just as a reminder to us to help make them feel more empowered to keep going and to make a difference. But also for me, it's therapy for me. I need that too. But it's also, just as somebody who is just deeply interested in people, it's been so cool to get to know some of these women that, some of them I kind of knew a little bit about before. A couple of them I knew quite a bit about. Most of them, not much. Muriel, I had never heard of.
Nor had I, actually.
Which I thought was remarkable. I really was surprised, and that kind of bums me out that even in your line of work that you had never heard of her. But we're going to do something about that. I don't know, how great our audience is at this point, but if for posterity, we have one more voice that's going to be talking about why she was so important. I was really, again, like with several of the other women I've talked about, I was really shocked at how much she accomplished and the fact that we don't know more about her.
Yes.
That really is a shame. And the other part of that is because finances are so foreign to me. Like, it's money is a very abstract, math in general. Math is just not my forte, and fortunately I have a spouse who is very good with money and with our personal finances, and frankly he does handle most of the personal finances, but that is terrifying to me as an example to my daughter and my nieces and the other young women in my life, because something that really, really just bums me out is I know a lot of women who are not happy in their lives, particularly in their marriages, because they feel like, and they feel like they can't leave the situation because they don't have any financial literacy skills.
Yes.
I got very lucky. It's basically, and I hope that I don't sound boastful when I say this, but I did get very, very lucky with my significant other. We have very classic gender roles in our homes in a lot of ways.
Which is shocking to me.
It is, because neither one of us
Yeah.
are the kind of people that neither, he's absolutely could not be married to me if he were, a sexist pig who didn't respect women's intelligence and
Right.
autonomy. There are a lot of things that I think that I take the lead on in our family. I'm definitely not, some 50s housewife because if anybody was, I have a full-time job, I work very hard. I don't make as much money as he does, largely because we live in a patriarchy where men's labor is rewarded at a higher rate. But he does do the bulk of the finances. I just happen to be really lucky that I have never had to figure that out in my life. I also, though, will say that I've never really worried about it because I've just always been, and maybe it's just stupid arrogance, but I've always been the kind of person that thought, hey, you know what? If I have to figure it out, I will. Yes. I've never felt like I had to stay in my marriage because of that lack either. But again, I almost feel like it's a bad role model for the kids in my life.
Oh, I disagree with that. First of all, let me say that I think you are entitled to brag about hitting the jackpot in a husband.
Oh, thanks.
There's nothing,
He's probably listening at the door right now.
That's okay. He paid me to say this. Yeah. So that's fine. No, I think that you can't, particularly in the male-female, feels like almost a culture war going on social media right now.
Well, women are mad. They're tired and they're mad.
Yes.
For reasons.
Yes.
Good reasons.
Yes. And it has not escaped my notice and the notice of so many women that what you're talking about, the financial, being a financial prisoner has been, it has been designed by men for centuries.
Oh, yeah. Thousands of years. Yeah.
Yes.
In almost every
millennia,
culture.
yes.
Yeah.
And is still going on in countries around the world now.
Yeah.
So, when we look at, wow, things have really feel like they have rolled back significantly in this country. When we look at other, particularly theocracies is the word. Thank you, perimenopause, that I don't have words anymore.
I feel you.
I called the oven the hot the other day.
I do that. I forget words like chair. That my dogs are I'll go through every name in my family and then just yell whoever you are. I feel you. Yeah, it's real. That menopause brain is real.
Yes, I put the Hoosier What's It in the hot the other day.
Sounds like you're
dinner went in the oven.
That's funny. That sounds like you were in a Dr. Seuss book.
It does. So, in any case, I don't think that it's a poor example to women in your life that you have the comfort of stability in having a partner, a life partner who gives that to you. That is something that we can see and aspire to, not even necessarily financially, but to see that we can have this this sanctuary and this comfort in our life partner, whatever the topic is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing that I always tell, because I have had women in my life in the past who it has been apparent to me that they have judged me for that and thought, well, of course you don't have to worry about this. It's easy for you to say because your spouse makes more money. But we got together when we were 21 and 22 years old. We didn't have two nickels to rub together. And at that time, I made more money than he did, probably because I worked more initially. So, we just put everything together in the beginning. We were pulling that yoke together and we made very similar money. And what I always tell them is that it's not an accident that I am with somebody who I am able to trust that way. It's not an accident that we didn't just fall into this. We had to prove to each other that we were both going to be pulling our weight. And conversely, one of the other things is that, I have a lot of friends who aspire to to not work and to stay at home. And I don't judge that at all, especially if you have young children. Sometimes that is absolutely just the best choice for your family. It would have never worked for us. First of all, I actually did try it for a hot minute when Ava was a little baby, and I hated it. I hated not being able to bring in my own income. And he didn't like it because it's terrifying to be the sole breadwinner. Whether you're making exponentially more or what have you, we've both come up from, more humble circumstances, and it's not that we're wealthy now, but, we both know the value of work.
Right.
And we both know how quickly things can change.
Yes.
And so I would not want to ever put him psychologically in that position of where he would be solely responsible for, I think in the back of his mind, at the beginning of COVID when he got furloughed, it was terrifying.
Yeah. I bet.
Because for the first time, he's like, and just let's not even talk about the fact that even while he was furloughed, he was making more money than I was for 8 weeks of not doing any work whatsoever. But anyway, all of that to say, something that I feel really passionate about is that I would love to see a world where more women felt empowered to make their own financial choices so that they did not feel like they had to stay in a marriage where they were miserable and unhappy, or that they felt like their dreams could never come true because they can't accomplish things for whatever reason. And so that's what I'm really excited to talk more about with you today. Do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about Muriel and her life and why all of that is relevant to the person that we're going to be getting to know here?
Absolutely, I do. And I do want to just defend for a moment that I had not heard of Muriel, partly because I primarily read manuals and guides and underwriting guidelines and things that are not interesting to
not
most
biographical.
People. Yes.
Well, so did Muriel. I will still say, though, that having been such a pioneer in your industry, I'm sure there are other men that were leaders in that industry that you could have named that you've heard about.
That's
by reputation.
Point. That's true.
And I feel like she should be more well known for everything that she accomplished. But hey, like I said, we're going to do our little part for that.
Well, let me tell you about her. So Muriel Siebert was a pioneering American businesswoman. She was known as the first woman of finance for becoming the first woman to own a seat on the New York Stock Exchange and for founding the first female-owned brokerage firm in the United States. Muriel, Mickie, as you pointed out, Siebert, was born on September 12th, 1928. And there's some controversy because there are some documents that record her year of birth as 1932. She's kind of, she was a little free and loose with the year of her birth.
I read that. She freely admitted that too. Yes. I actually read that one of the people with her foundation, and I don't remember what that person's official title was, actually had to provide documentation to show that Muriel was in fact born in 1928 after she passed. So.
Yeah, I have heard, as we've been researching Muriel, I've heard that she passed away at 80 years old. I've heard she passed away at 84 years old. And I've heard that she passed away at 86 years old. So we're just going to go with 1928. But she was born in Cleveland, Ohio, to a large and, at least on her mother's side, close-knit Jewish family. Her father was a dentist and an engineer. Her mother was a homemaker. And her family was first-generation Hungarian immigrants. She attended Western Case Reserve University, but left before graduating due to her father's illness. In 1954, with only $500 and no college degree, she moved to New York City to pursue a career in finance.
Bold.
Yes, she was. She faced initial rejections, including from Merrill Lynch, due to the fact that she didn't have a college degree. She eventually landed a research analyst job with, and I think this is called Bosch.
It's Bosch, yeah.
Bosch. Okay, thank you. Those of us who learn words by reading them sometimes don't know how to pronounce them correctly.
I would have never guessed that that's how it was pronounced. I watched several YouTube videos about Muriel this week, and so someone pronounced it helpfully for us.
Very good. Well, she eventually landed a research analyst job with Bosch and Company by lying on her resume about her educational background.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
In 1967, at the age of 39, I forgot she was only 39.
Isn't that crazy?
How fun is that I'm saying only 39?
I know.
She made history by becoming the first woman to purchase a seat on the New York Stock Exchange, overcoming significant gender bias and numerous obstacles, including difficulty being turned down by the first 9 people she asked to sponsor her, and financing for the $445,000 seat.
That's insane. And this was in 1969.
Yeah, that was a whole lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money now. Yeah, that's good for her. Bold is the word.
I can't wait till you really explain to me what a seat means, but let's go ahead.
She founded Muriel, Siebert and Company, Inc. in 1969, the first woman-owned brokerage firm that was a New York Stock Exchange member. She also pioneered the first discount brokerage after commission deregulated in 1975. By the way, it is the longest running discount brokerage today.
I can't wait till you tell me what a discount brokerage is.
In 1977, Muriel became the first female superintendent of banks for New York State. She oversaw about $500 billion in assets in 1977.
I wonder what that would be in today's money.
Oh, I wish I'd looked.
There's a couple of other stats in this discussion that I'm going to want to look up.
Well, one thing that was really amazing was that during that time frame, even though banks were failing all around the country, no bank failed in New York during Muriel's leadership, Mickie's leadership. She also served as the director of New York City's Urban Development Corporation and Job Development Authority. She was a passionate advocate for women and minorities in finance. She created the Siebert Entrepreneurial Philanthropic Plan in 1990, which donated half of the net profits from new securities underwriting to charity. She championed financial literacy and supported political efforts promoting women's rights. Mickie ran for the U.S. Senate as a Republican in 1982. Unfortunately, she was unsuccessful, and she did return to expand her company, which became publicly traded in 1996. She was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1994, the Global Business Hall of Fame in 2009, and at her passing, she actually had 17 honorary PhDs.
No way.
Yeah.
I saw that she had, I didn't realize it was 7. The number didn't clock with me. That's insane.
Yeah. She passed away in New York on August 24th, 2013, at age 80 or 84
or 86.
Leaving a lasting legacy of perseverance, trailblazing leadership, and advocacy for gender equality in finance. She was just a visionary.
She was such an amazing woman. Before we get into anything else, first thing I have to admit, our primary source for this, because we were actually supposed to record a couple of weeks ago. And again, the problem with Mickie is that there is not a lot of her personal life documented in articles, and they're just like with a lot of my other sources, there were newspapers and there are things about her, but she was so much about her business that there's just not a whole lot of, she doesn't seem to have had a whole lot of a personal life. Her dog, Monster Girl, which I cannot wait for us to get into. Yeah, I told you that was the thing that I was probably the most excited about talking about. Because, yes, June agrees. As much as I cuss these 3 big dodos, especially that one who's about to get, hey, no ma'am. As much as I cuss them, you know how much I love these dogs.
Of course.
So her being in love with Monster Girl, that just made me love her even more. But at any rate, so we were supposed to record a couple weeks ago, and I just couldn't get enough sources at that time to really get a handle on who she was. So I found out that she had written this book called Changing the Rules, Adventures of a Wall Street Maverick. And I thought, you know what, let's get the book, we'll read it, and then we will have a really meaty source material, in her own words, to work from. Here's what I have to admit. I could not finish the book, Kris. I couldn't do it. There's a part in there where she talks about how she has an enormous success rate with things that she is interested with. And because she was talking about how she was kind of an indifferent student, how she ended up flunking out of college. Partly it was because her father got cancer, and that was, very traumatic, very sad. He was, of course, the breadwinner in their entire family. He was a dentist. Apparently she had a shitty uncle. That's one of the things I did love about her, is that when I could find personal stories that she told, she threw that uncle under the bus. Don't you know she loved being able to afford to be able to do that?
Yes.
Yeah, and so she talked about this uncle that was the big man on campus in the family. He was, I guess, the guy with all the money in the family. Uncle Doctor, yeah. Yes. And he kicked his sick brother out of his practice because his son was a dentist, so that he could install his son in that location as he was dying.
Yes.
And then when he did pass, a lot of what he did have left, and they were not without means. I don't want anyone to think, when we get into the story, really kind of get into Muriel moving to New York, and as she said, coming to New York with $500, a Studebaker, and a dream. It was amazing, but a lot of people, $500 would have been a fortune for them in 1956, I think, is when she came.
A lot of people, it'd be a fortune today.
Today, right. Yeah. So she didn't completely come from no means, but what she accomplished was still incredible. It was amazing. At any rate, she talked about how it, when she was in college, it was when her dad started getting sick, but she also was playing a lot of bridge, and she just wasn't interested in what she wasn't interested in. I think Muriel and I would have gotten along really, really well. I just have such hero worship for her now, but our brains are completely the opposite, and yet somehow the same. I am exactly like that. If it's something that's interesting to me, like human beings, human behavior, history, politics, current events, things like that, I'm voracious. When you get into finance or numbers or money, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher in my ear, just want. And she was exactly the opposite. That seems to be all she cared about. So her biography, I hope you really enjoyed it, was just chock full of so much information about her career and accounting and economics, and it just all was, and I didn't retain any of it. So I punted, and it was fine because I found a ton of YouTube videos, and I found articles and short biographies and things like that. So I think I know a lot about her now, but I still don't understand her business very well. So can you tell us a little bit more about what exactly does a stockbroker do? What when she got her seat on the stock exchange, what exactly did that mean?
Sure. I will to the best of my ability. Let me give the caveat that I have spent my career in finance, being lending and investment real estate and hard assets. So I'm not super familiar with securities and bonds, but I am going to grant myself the gold star for today because I did finish the book.
She has 8,000 notes sticking out where she has annotated this thing. I'm so proud of her and so ashamed of myself.
Well, I'm going to let you off the hook a little bit to tell you I finished the book about an hour before I left.
Okay, good. Because it was dense. I mean, again, there was a lot.
It was hearty.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It was, if it was a soup, it would be a chili.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, first of all, the seat on the New York Stock Exchange no longer exists. The New York Stock Exchange became a public entity, and there are shares in the stock exchange. So what she did in 1969 would not be done today in 2025 because that's not real anymore. Okay. If that makes sense.
Well, not really. What exactly did she do? To start from where I do understand. And I do understand more now than I did before I attempted reading Muriel's book. What I understand is that she had a brilliance for analyzing businesses and seeing where people with money to invest might want to invest that money based on things like what she thought the value of their technology, or like one of the things that she talked about was that she was the first woman to work at a lot of these firms that she started with. And there were a couple of analysts that were female, but they were given accounts that were predominantly quote unquote female interest, things like food or luxury items or clothing and things like that. Her brilliance was more technological, like where she seemed to really see a lot of potential for people to make money, where in particular, like for instance, the burgeoning aeronautics field.
Right. Yes, and she fell upon that because nobody else wanted it.
Yeah.
Everybody else said, "Oh, you can have this industry to analyze for stocks and investments because we don't think it's going anywhere."
Right, because you're the woman and we don't think, and even though you're asking for something different, this is a field that we just don't think anybody's...
Right, nobody cares about it, so you can have it.
Yeah.
You can have these leftover garbage pieces.
Yeah.
But yeah, her particular skill seemed to be in really analyzing the numbers and evaluating the business in terms of its income and its assets and its net operating profits, things of that nature. As she described it, when she looked at a page of numbers, the numbers just lit up for her like a Broadway marquee.
Yeah. And
that's how she described it.
Right. And I so understood exactly how that works for her, because again, my brain is the opposite. There are things, I am definitely not any kind of a genius, but there are things that are maybe a little easier for me than other people. For instance, genealogy, like it is just a thing that I've helped several people to find their birth family when they do, you know, like a DNA test, and I have an account with Ancestry, and I am able to, because I'm obsessively interested in it, I am able to wade for hours and hours and days and sometimes weeks and months through people's family trees, putting together these connections that I can see because it's fascinating to me. I couldn't get through a 200-page book because it just, my brain just doesn't operate. So I wish that my brain worked like hers.
Well, I'm going to tattle on you to your audience that you, like Muriel, are a bit of a fibber, because you said you are by no means a genius, and I want to contradict that immediately.
Stop. No.
Y'all, this is the only human I personally know and have interacted with who has been on Jeopardy.
Stop, I don't tell people that.
That is the pinnacle.
I didn't win. Didn't even get close.
She got on.
I freaked out.
Gosh.
I hated it.
All right. Well,
I did not like any of it.
That
well, at any rate, I truly am not being false. I do think I'm pretty smart about some things. Honestly, I think most of us are pretty smart about something.
That's exactly what my business, The Genius Cultivator, is founded upon, is tapping into your own personal zones of genius for maximum life fulfillment and prosperity. So yeah, I echo that 100%.
And Muriel would love that, because I think that's a lot of what she espoused was for people to, one of the things that, give me a second because I'm looking for something. Here it is. One of her quotes that I really loved was, "You create opportunities by performing, not complaining." Loved that. Like there were so many things that were stacked against her, that, you know, the fact that she didn't have the degree, the fact that there were no women really in the field that she was interested in, the fact that it was the 1950s, you know, the fact that she had no roadmap for where she wanted to go. And
yes, she was, you know, building the proverbial plane as she was flying it.
Right.
Plus, she was Jewish in an anti-Semitic time.
Oh, and that, yeah.
I mean,
I got to imagine there were a lot of people in finance that were probably more, and there are a lot of reasons. I don't want anybody to hear this to take that in an anti-Semitic way. It is absolutely true that there are a lot of Jewish people in finance. There are cultural reasons for that. There are, through most of history, Christians were not allowed to loan money at interest because it's actually against the Bible for anybody that's out there worshiping false idols that really only care about money. and claim that they're Christian. But anyway, I won't digress too much in that. But for that reason, and at that same time, there were most occupations in the world for the first 2,000 years of Jewish history that they were not allowed to be in.
Right.
Banking and entertainment were two of the industries that they were allowed to operate in almost any culture that they were at. And for that reason, there are a lot of Jewish people in finance. But absolutely, it's still a WASP's world, especially in the 1950s in the United States. Mm-hmm. So that was, for sure, another strike against her.
Well, let me attempt to describe to you, if I can, the concept of buying a seat. So imagine that there is, for example, an exclusive club. Maybe it's a country club, right? And you have annual... that only allows so many people, and you have to have a sponsorship to get into the club. Somebody has to nominate you, and there is a fee to be a member of the club. And by being a member of the club, you can go swimming in the pool, you can use the gym.
Hold on. June, I'm going to kill you. Go, get out. She heard a mouse fart outside.
So, by being a member of the club, you can eat in the restaurant, those sorts of things, right? So, in order for Muriel to be able to trade on the New York Stock Exchange, she had to get admission to the club. So, the seat was like the admission to the club, was the membership to the club.
Right. Before that, let's just clarify. Before that, when she initially got into the finance world, what she was doing up to that point was analyzing, correct?
Yes, and she could place orders through other people who had a seat.
Yeah.
But then, of course, they took a cut of
her money.
Right.
And let's clarify that even, and say that one of the things that Muriel was really motivated by was by the fact that when she initially got hired on to these firms, like, again, it's kind of like my whole deal that I was explaining about how I understand how fortunate I am with my financial situation in our marriage, but that doesn't stop me from seeing the pitfalls.
Sure.
Muriel was very aware that, she was lucky and she was grabbing every opportunity that she could find to advance up through this, because this was her chosen career path, but she never blinded herself to the inequalities. And so she was making really good money right off the bat for a woman at the time. I did look this up. She started out, I think, making $65 a week. She could have made $75 if she'd gone into the accounting department, but she thought that was boring. So she stuck with analyzing, and she was making $65 a week. The math on that worked out to be something like, I want to say like $3,500 a year. The average man in the United States at that time was $3,200 a year. And this was a young woman, 21, I think, when she first got there, just starting out. So that was already remarkable. And very quickly, through her skills and her ability to network, which is also something that you are fantastic at. This woman, Kristen, knows everybody on the planet. Like, if you walk around our little hometown, and you're with her, it's like being with the mayor. She's just like, hey, how are you? Oh, I know everybody. She knows everyone. Politician down to the grocery clerk. Muriel was great at things like that. But she also, and by the time she got to the point where she bought her seat, she was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year through her own sheer determination and acumen. But she also recognized that she was still making 40% less on average than the men that were not working nearly as hard as she was in the same industry. So that was her motivation to get onto the floor.
And one of the things I love about her, too, is that she never sat back and rested on her laurels.
Ever.
Yeah. She
was looking for the next thing.
Yes. What is the next challenge to overcome? What is the next thing to bust open, so to speak? And I don't think she was ever obnoxious about it. She wasn't, She wasn't in your face. She wasn't screaming about it.
No.
She let her work speak for itself. And that was one thing I found remarkable, is that over and over and over again, the companies that she analyzed or she was adjacent to would tell her, hey, look, if you want to work here, we would love to have you, because they recognized her brilliance and her incredible work ethic. So into buying the seat on the New York Stock Exchange to help her be more efficient and to optimize her profits, as I understand it, I wouldn't testify to it in court, but that's my understanding. And the first 9 men that she asked to sponsor her said no, just because she was a woman.
Yeah.
And the New York Stock Exchange, because she was trying to buy a seat, first woman, they implemented a requirement only for her that had never been used before, which was, in order for us to grant you the seat, you have to have not only the sponsorship, but you also have to have a letter of credit from a bank that says that you can borrow up to $300,000.
Which is so infuriating.
Yes. And of course, remember too, this was at times when
women weren't allowed to have credit cards without a husband co-signing for them.
Bank accounts.
Yeah,
without a brother or a husband or an uncle. Yeah. Well, we know that uncle was
a shithead.
Yeah, well, that's to put it mildly. Right. And father had passed away, and she had a sister.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, she was up against challenges at every turn. But what was happening was the banks were saying, well, we're not going to give you a letter of credit for the seat until you have approval for the seat. Yeah. So she had this catch-22. Yeah. Right. But it was a division of Chase Bank, I believe, that finally gave her whatever it was, a previous iteration of Chase Bank.
I believe J.D. Rockefeller was the one that finally signed off personally.
That's right, on her sponsorship, right?
Which speaks to the power of her personality. Because you have to know, I mean, we've all watched Mad Men. And again, this was a time when not only were there no women in these spots, women weren't even allowed on a small personal, not even trying to break into the world of finance, just have your own personal credit card, have your own personal bank account with your $20 or whatever. You couldn't even do that. So for her to do that, you have to think about the jokes that she heard, the crassness that she had to overcome, and to not allow it to make her bitter, to not allow it to infuriate her. She must have had just an enormous force of personality for these good old boys, because not all of them were good old boys, but a lot of them were.
Well, and at that point in time, it was weird not to be.
Right. It would have been very unusual for her to not only have the force of personality that got those kind of men to sit up and listen to her and respect her and to help her to achieve her goals, that she didn't succumb to Queen Bee syndrome and become one of those women that are, I'm not like the rest of those girls, you know, immediately. And like you were talking about, her never resting on her laurels. Like as soon as she got in the door, she was pulling up everybody behind her that she possibly could.
Yes, and she at great personal sacrifice sometimes. So the 5 years that she was the banking regulator for the state of New York, and I'm using the wrong terminology, but banking chief.
Hold tight.
Thank you.
Give you a second to look that up.
The head honcho, the who's your whatsy and the hot. Superintendent of banking. So she had gone through so much to overcome these challenges to build her business, get the seat on the New York Stock Exchange, build credibility, build a client base as a woman in this time, and one of the first discount brokerages, so on and so on. Well, when she took the role as superintendent of banking for New York State, she was required to put her company into a blind trust while she was in the role so that there was not a conflict of interest, which means by the time she came back 5 years later, she hardly knew anybody who worked there. The profits were in the toilet. The customer service was in the toilet. So many of her customers had gone to competitors And the ones who were there, she told a story about her dentist's wife. When she went to see her dentist, the wife, who was the hygienist, said, "Does your company not want my business anymore?" Because of the way she was being treated.
Oh my gosh, that killed her.
Oh, absolutely. And she could do absolutely nothing about it because it was required to be in a blind trust, and she wasn't even allowed to know anything that was going on. So she was going through great personal sacrifice in her own company for the benefit of the state of New York and the country as a whole. There were a lot of banking regulations that were being misapplied and were necessary, were not present yet. And so not only was she working with leadership in the state of New York, but she was also visiting Congress. She was even traveling overseas to represent the United States and the state of New York in these banking groups to understand what other countries were doing so she could bring it back to the state of New York for the betterment of everybody.
Yeah.
Not herself.
Yeah. So two things. We're you and I, just no surprise, we are all over, because this is how we talk. We are all over everywhere, all over the map with our conversation, and there's going to be a lot of zigzagging, people. So just, you're going to have to hang on. Yeah, buckle in, strap it on. First, this is how stupid I am. Can you briefly explain what trading means? Like, I've never really been able to grasp this. How does the stock exchange work?
Okay, yes. All right, so let's imagine, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So for those of you who are professionals in this space, do not come after me.
Look, the easier and the more fourth grade explanation you can make, the better for me, at least, for sure. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but definitely for me.
All right, so let's imagine. So, for example, my company, I own the Genius Cultivator.
Right.
I am the only owner of the Genius Cultivator. Mm-hmm. I own 100% of that company.
Okay.
All right. So let's say I want to convert the ownership of my company into 100 pieces. Right now, I just own the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But I could convert it to 100 pieces as an example. Mm-hmm. And I could sell you 3 of the pieces. And I could sell June 5 of the pieces. And I could sell Derby 10 of the pieces, right?
I wouldn't recommend it. They are not, they're no more financially stable than I am. But
well,
go ahead.
Y'all don't get any decision-making power of the company.
Gotcha.
I am still 100% in charge, and you just have to trust me that I'm going to do what's well and good for this company. You're buying the pieces of the company because you believe that I'm going to do well with your money.
Gotcha.
And the benefit to me, of course, is by selling you those pieces, I get the money that you're putting into the company. You're an investor in the company. Okay. Well, now you've decided that with your 3 pieces, you want to do something else. You've shifted. You're no longer investing in strategic business consultants. You now want to invest in dog kennel manufacturers because that's your strategy now.
That sounds like me, but yeah, go ahead.
So somebody else, you say, okay, I bought these 3 pieces for $10 each, and based on the profits of the company and based on the demand for other people who want to buy these pieces, I can now sell them for $15 each.
Okay.
So your neighbor across the street, he wants to buy your 3 pieces for $15 each. And now he has your 3 pieces of the company. Nothing changed for me as a leader of the company, right? And I still own what I own. So it's kind of like baseball cards, right? If you're trading baseball cards, it has no effect on the player, but it's who wants which card.
That's a great analogy.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So we probably don't have enough time in this podcast to really get into the nitty gritty of like how do they know what shares are up for sale every day. And as you pointed out, none of this is relevant anymore because it's completely changed, like the way that they do that. But essentially, as I understand it, what she was doing is every single day to get on the floor, it was so that you could go out and find what was needed to be purchased, or what was available for purchase, and trying to buy as low as you possibly can with the intention of then turning around and selling for maximum profit. Is that a good explanation?
Yes.
Good enough for government work, as they say?
Yes. I was actually looking, she had such a brilliant, I'll see if I can find it, but she had such a brilliant strategy that I thought was so great. So, for example, when she was going to represent a new stock, for example. So let's say she came across June's Doggy Daycare, which had become a publicly traded company. So like, for example, my company presently, the Genius Cultivator, is not a publicly traded company. You cannot buy stock in my company.
Right.
And I don't know if I ever want to be. That's beyond even the scope of
what you're trying to accomplish at this point. Right.
But in any case, let's say June's Doggy Daycare is a publicly traded company or is about to be, something like that. And so Mickie caught wind of it. She did the investigation. She wanted to be part of that. Her strategy then became she would call the people who already had stock. So there's publicly traded companies openly on the New York Stock Exchange, for example, and then there are privately traded companies. So they have stock, but they're not on the stock
advertising
exchange. Yes.
Gotcha.
They're not, you have to know somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she would find out that this was going to occur, and she would contact the people who already had ownership of the stock, and she would say, hey, would you like to buy some more? So, they already obviously have a vested interest. She's getting to know what they want. If they said yes, then she had a ready-built customer. If they said no, she would take note of that, and as she was going down the line and somebody wanted to buy some of the stock, she would go back to the people who said no and then ask them if they wanted to sell some.
Yeah, so I did grasp that part of what really made her successful was that computer-like ability to retain that kind of information about who was looking for what and who had what. And I think, I really feel like to her, it was like a game. I think that's why she was so successful at it, is that she never lost sight of the fact that this is kind of like real life Monopoly.
Yes.
And she had that drive to put hotels on everything, for lack of a better word. But that she basically, what kept her popular and kept her moving upward and upward in mobility in this world was that she had the ability to make relationships with people. Mm-hmm. And so like these private equity firms or whatnot, she had that ability to just remember, oh, you like, this is what you're into, or you aren't really into that, and I know you have this, but you're probably gonna. She was able to put those dots together for, might have been 10 years ago. She retained that piece of information and was able at the exact right time to put that piece into play, for lack of a better analogy. Yeah.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think too, one of the things that made her exceptional is what I gather from her biography here is that she had a way of treating people like humans instead of like transactions.
Yeah.
So she would contact the people, and she wasn't necessarily trying to sell them on something. She was asking them what they wanted, what they're interested in. And she took note of that.
Yeah, she got to know them as people.
Yes, and people took note of her because she wasn't trying to sell them on something. She was listening.
Yeah, she seemed to have never lost sight of the blue-collar roots that she came from.
Yes.
You get the impression, reading about her and listening to her talk, I really encourage anybody that's interested in this to go look on YouTube and listen to Mickie in her own words. She's just such an incredible person to sit at the feet of, and just like she can speak in a way that is accessible to everybody. And so you just really get this impression that whether she was chit-chatting with the elevator operator in her building, or if she was sitting down with one of the Rockefellers, that she had the same amount of personal interest in them as a human being and the same amount of respect for them as a human being unless given reason to not respect them.
Absolutely.
Otherwise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No one was beneath anyone else.
Yeah, and no one was above anybody else. I just really felt like that she genuinely, and it's nothing that she preached. It wasn't that she went on and on and on about that. It just was, she lived that ethos throughout her entire, up to the very end. So her blind trust, when she was what was her title again? I've already...
Superintendent of Banking.
Superintendent of Banking. What exactly does a blind trust mean when she had to put her business in that for ethical reasons, so that, you know, she was not being seen as being preferential to her own industry? Like, what does that mean?
Well, again, as I understand it, she had to withdraw her own interest from the company and place it into, how do I describe this? Imagine that you have to go on vacation for 5 years and you have to put all of your dogs in doggy daycare for 5 years, but you don't get to know where. You don't get to know who's taking care of them. You don't get to know how they're playing, what their activities are, what kind of dog food they're eating, if they have any toys.
I don't like this.
I know, right? Right? That's what she had to do with her company.
That must have been she very much, you get the impression that, like all the women that I admire most in the world, she was a control freak, and she wanted very much to be the author of her own destiny and take care of her own business. So that must have been very, very difficult.
Well, and she never had children, right?
Right.
She never married. She never had children. So I imagine that emotional response that you had when I was talking about the dogs. No doubt that's how she felt emotionally about her business that she had built from the ground up.
Yeah.
It was her name on the door.
Yeah. I mean, and even more than most, I think we should all very much be proud of our accomplishments, but especially being the first in so many fields and being such a feminist. That must have really, really been tough. But she was great. She did. Yeah. She knocked it out of the park for all women. You know, thank you, Mickie, for humanity and for the good of the world. Because as you said, we've all heard about the economic depression in the 70s, and New York did not suffer. New York is the banking capital of the world. So the fact that she had a steady hand at the till for those 5 years did immeasurable good for this country. And we really have her to thank for that. So then she gets out, and she's no longer the commissioner, and she goes back to her business, and she has to build it basically from the ground up again.
Well, worse than that, because once you have... One of the things that I am so protective of is my reputation, because it takes so little to soil it and can be so challenging to ever try to win it back.
Yeah.
It is easier to start from zero than to start from the deficit of a soiled reputation.
Yeah.
But she did it.
Yeah.
She did it. She brought it back. She did quite a bit of housekeeping in terms of employees when she returned, but that authenticity, that transparency, that human interaction and touch and attention brought her clients back and gained her even more, and she expanded the company and actually eventually became a publicly traded company. I actually looked at her website today, or the website today, for Siebert and Company. They're doing phenomenal things.
Yeah.
And I confess that I will be doing much more deep investigation into the organization.
Well, that makes me happy. I'm glad to know that you found something that you are deeply interested in through this. One of the things that it seems like to me, and you can tell me if I'm off base with this, but it almost seems like to me that when she came back, actually, before I get into that, one of the things I want to ask about is, you mentioned earlier that she was the first discount brokerage firm. What does that mean? Can you tell us exactly what that means?
When it first happened, she was against it, as I recall. Before discount brokerages, if you wanted to purchase stock, you had to go to Joe's stock house and Joe would have to do your transactions for you, and Joe was going to get a commission, and you had to rely primarily on Joe's investigation and analysis and so on and so forth. And it was a fairly long transaction. Well, today, I can get on my phone and I can trade stocks almost instantly, and there's a set fee for how much I'm going to pay for that, or depending on the stock. Anyway, so
that's my understanding, is that that's the big difference, was that before there was a negotiated rate, and then afterwards there was a set, or vice versa. I believe before there was a set rate that your broker was going to make in a transaction, but afterwards you could negotiate that rate, and what she did was cut her own rate to an extent that made it more attractive to people to use her services, because they weren't going to be paying as much in commission.
Yes. The challenge, though, was previous to that, you also got your broker's analysis. And when you went to the discount brokerage model, you no longer had your broker's analysis. And that was her skill set. That was her strength.
Yeah.
So for her to set aside what had been her strength for so long, and what brought her to the place where she was willing to reinvent herself again to continue to shift with what the market was demanding.
Well, and that's a good point, and I think that speaks to what I was going to ask about earlier, is what you think about this, because it did seem like to me that when she came back, she was even more, when she came back and she went to the discount brokerage model, that her primary focus was no longer in Muriel breaking down doors. It was now Mickie's going to pull everybody up with her, because that's when she really hit the ground running with her philanthropic work, with her work to bring more women into finance, and to make it, to pave the way for more women to come in, and minority women especially to come in. There is still an entity, I don't know, do you remember the name of it? Because if not, I'm going to Google it here and then we can go into it. But the woman that she went into business with, that she still has.
I will say, though, that by looking at the firm's website today, there is still a significant push and messaging on the firm's website today that is about customization, is about your particular needs versus what we want to sell you. What's going to meet your financial needs and goals. There's also significant messaging around financial literacy and continuing the philanthropic work. One of the things that she did that pleased me so much, and she also worked significantly in real estate. She had significant real estate holdings.
Oh yeah, she.
And she refused. Her saying was, "No leash, no lease." If they did not allow pets into the building, she would not work with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy for someone who did not seem to ever have been a lecturer or a preacher. Mm-hmm. She walked the walk, no matter how tough it got. She lived her morals throughout her entire life. When she was making $65 a week, and when she was making probably upwards of $1 million a week at some points. At some point, when she initially went public with her company, and this was in the late 90s, when $1 billion was a big deal, for a hot minute, she was the first female billionaire. On paper, she was the first female billionaire. Like, part of her push to really walk the walk and to take her money and put it where her mouth was, and to do the things that she felt passionately about while she was alive, she started really investing in relationships with other women in finance. Janet Wagner, looking at this article from Bloomberg, if you guys don't have an account with Bloomberg.com, I certainly am not going to keep mine for very long, but I paid the $1.95 to access these articles, and I'm really glad I did, because they have the most life to them. You could tell whoever it is that wrote about Muriel really loved her. And they really captured her spirit and her personality in a way that I didn't find in any of the other biographies about her out there. This one article that was written when she passed as kind of a eulogy said former Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker described Siebert as a strong, emphasis added, superintendent of banking for New York State. During her tenure, she liked to call herself the SOB. And I bet she could be. I bet she absolutely, when she needed to be, could be a complete SOB, which brings me, not to squirrel out too much here, but I thought it was very funny when she talked about how she basically learned cursing as a second language to be able to communicate with men.
Yes.
Because all of the guys that she talked to in finance, she learned quickly that if you couldn't fluently curse, then they didn't respect you or even understand you. And so she learned cursing almost like a foreign language.
Yes. She also remarked that she had to be able to basically drink them under the table.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, that's a good way to make an excuse for your love of vodka, which is mentioned a lot. But at any rate, so she had a friend named Jeanette Wagner who recalled joining her to help elect Barbara Franklin as the first chairwoman of the Economic Club of New York. And after that, they decided to form the KBC Club, which stood for the Kick Butt Club. And she's another friend who was in finance, who went to the south of France with her. They were in a restaurant with lobsters. It's one of those restaurants where you could cook live lobsters, and the lobsters clearly didn't want to be eaten, so Mickie just admired their fight and their spirit too much, and she refused to kill them. That's so, I could completely relate to that. I would never be able to get that done. But, she founded financial literacy programs. Mm-hmm. That was a huge part of her legacy, that she actually got these programs into the New York school system. Mm-hmm. Which is amazing to me, mm-hmm. because that's one of the things, we're both moms, and I think that's one of the things, and even before having children, one of the things I regretted is that no one ever talked to me about financial literacy in school. I mean, there were a lot of things that I was far more interested in, but I would have definitely gotten a lot more use out of someone telling me how to pay my taxes, mm-hmm. why paying my taxes was important, uh-huh. How to choose the right option for your tax exemptions, how to set a budget, how to make sure that you're, investing your money correctly, how to make your money work for you. All of those things that she was really passionate about. Once she got out of that regulation job and she came back into her own firm, that's where she started expending her time and her money and her energy. There were so many clubs and so many different organizations and so many different charities. And as we discussed, as you pointed out, she was very passionate about immigration because she came from a family of immigrants. But that doesn't mean, I have several friends whose parents were immigrants, that when you are in a minority group of any sort, mm-hmm. when you are finally able to make it into the club. The mistake that a lot of people, the club, and I'm using, air quotes here, because we live in a society that is very difficult for minorities of any type to make it. A lot of people make the mistake of getting into that club, and then they just shut that door behind them as quickly as they can.
Yes.
And they think the only way that they can advance is by being what I called earlier, the I'm not like the other girls person. With women, it's called the queen bee syndrome. A lot of women, they get into places of power and they immediately start making it incredibly difficult for other women to advance. I've had so many friends tell me that they would much rather work for a man.
That's interesting that you say that, because I was pondering it as I was driving over here. I was thinking about a lot of the challenges that Mickie went through in her time period as a woman, advancing and having to, doors weren't opened for her. She was known for having to kick them in. Right? But she did leave them wide open after she kicked them in.
Right.
One of the things that I thought of is it would almost be easier in some ways to have been a woman who was discriminated against then, because at least then it was blatant.
Mm-hmm. You knew where you stood.
Yes. Whereas now, There are so many times that I feel like I've experienced it and it was a surprise to me because it was happening quietly. It was happening where I
Covertly.
didn't know it was. Yes. And often by other women.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be accepted into the club.
Yeah.
And because I wasn't trying to be in the club, then they saw it as an advantage to climb upon someone else's shoulders rather than to walk in arm in arm.
Where they felt like it's almost like this scarcity mindset that they feel like that there is only finite amount of room for, a minority of any sort, whether you're a woman or whether, again, there are a lot of people that I have heard that are children of immigrants who have said that their parents aren't necessarily as supportive of other immigrants coming in because they feel like if there are more of them, then there's less opportunity. And that's a real shame. I mean, that's an awful thing. I've been lucky. I mean, I've definitely worked with some queen bees. One of the beauties of being 50 is that by the time I was in my mid to late 30s, actually, I've just never been somebody who's appreciated rudeness or being talked down to or yelled at or any of that stuff. So by the time I was approaching middle age, I learned how to deal with those people. And that is just to confront them head on. Don't let them do what you just described, because they will. They will try to do it in a sly way that, they'll be a lot of times smiling to your face, but behind your back, they're stabbing you as quickly and as deeply as they possibly can and as often as they possibly can.
Yes.
And once I have identified that, I don't play that game anymore. I confront it outright and I bring it to the light, and very politely and professionally, we're going to have a conversation about what is this dynamic, because it doesn't work for me. It also, I have been very lucky that I have had, anytime I've really advanced in my career, it's because of a woman. It's because a woman has seen something in me that was valuable and worthwhile and given me an opportunity. And those are the people on this planet that I admire the most. When I was a waitress, I had no degree. I was 25 years old. I had no business experience whatsoever. A manager of mine who recognized that I was awesome at any task that you gave me. I don't want to say that. I'm not awesome at any task you give me, but I work hard. I take ownership of everything that is my purview. And even when my purview was just making sure that I was the best hostess at that front door and that I took it very seriously and I was very responsible for showing up on time and being there and busting my butt when I did it. And she recognized that. And so when she moved into the home office, she pulled me in. She was like, they needed a receptionist. She was like, I've got your girl. And then when I got in there, the person that was my supervisor was the administrative assistant for the CEO. And she recognized that, it's quote unquote just the front desk, but that's also very important because you are the first person that people talk to. You're the first person that people see when they come in. You have a relationship, if you're good, with everybody in there. And from that, I had, another woman who was the head of the marketing department who wasn't even my purview, but she would come and she would mentor me and guide me and give me advice and tell me how to move up. And just so many times, I could go on and on about that, but that's been my experience.
Yes.
So it hurts my heart so much when I hear women say things like, I can't be friends with other women, or I don't want to work for other women. I know I'm not naive. I've been there. I know the challenges, but I think this world makes it. I think what Mickie recognized is that women were awesome in general, and that we are up against it in this world, and that we have a lot of, the 8 ball, we are behind it. And so, our race has to be run a lot more swiftly, and, you can't stumble, you can have, none of that. It is hard to be friends in this world with women because there are a lot of things that encourage us to see each other as competition.
Yes.
And to stab us. It very much is.
It is cultivated.
Yes. There are reasons for it. As we talked about at the beginning of this, when we were talking about, that they're in a patriarchy, especially in these countries where it's basically a theocracy, there are vested reasons for people to keep us at each other's throats. Because once you recognize that cooperation and collaboration is far more powerful, then that's a threat to the powers that be.
I think she was also very pragmatic.
Very.
Yeah. And so I was looking for this quote just now, speaking of relationships and interpersonal. She said, I always think that when both sides say nasty things about you, it means you're doing a good job.
I love that about her. Mm-hmm. I absolutely did. We are running at, I could probably do this for another 2 hours because she really just such a fascinating, that's my catnip. Like, powerful women to me are just the most inspiring thing in the world. And she was, especially ones that don't sit and cry and wait for somebody to hand them something or give up when they realize how hard it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be hard. Yes. Still today. Yes. I can't even fathom how hard it was for her. But like we said, the first 9 people that she asked, and she had relationships with all of these men.
Absolutely.
And they all looked her in the face and told her no. And she didn't sit down. She didn't sit down and cry and give up. She got up and she just kept going and she just kept moving forward. And it worked. And I think that's one of the things that I recognized the most in her. And I found, again, I don't want to sound like I am comparing myself to this brilliant woman at all, but there's just a lot I recognized in her. And I think probably you did too. And one of the things that for instance, like, I got a little nostalgia. Oh, I don't know if I should even say this. I was a Republican for a long time. Same. Everybody that knows me knows that. Same. And I was a Republican until 2015. Muriel was as well, and it gave me some nostalgia for the old school Republican Party because she described herself once as saying that she believed that she was pretty fiscally conservative, but she was absolutely very liberal as far as human rights and women's liberation go. Yes. And same. And I have always been, you used to be able to be a Republican and there was a big umbrella and you could be those things. Mm-hmm. You could be someone who absolutely understood capitalism is not always evil. Mm-hmm. That it absolutely can lead. The American dream is possible. Mm-hmm. I think it's getting harder right now. We're not in a situation at this particular moment in time where that is an easy thing to accomplish or even possible, I don't think, for every single segment of our society. It certainly wasn't in 1950 when she had to create the world that she wanted to see.
Yes. Yeah, and she was the only woman on the New York Stock Exchange that had a seat for 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was not a ladies' room, a ladies' restroom there where she was working at the New York Stock Exchange until she threatened to have a porta potty installed.
Yeah, I read one of her quotes was, "No one had been this interested in my bathroom habits since I was a baby."
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But she was losing time. Like, actually, what I read was that there was some sort of a bathroom that they put in during the Korean War, but no one even knew it was there anymore. For several years. And then I think that it was like a little crabby little hole in the wall. So she had to work really hard. And I feel like she was frustrated by that and she could have become shrewish in some people's minds, but she didn't let that stop her. She kept humor about it. Yes. And she kept pushing for it.
Yes.
Because it was important. She didn't act like, I could see some women may have felt like, I am just going to suck it up and keep doing this because I don't want to be seen as weak and needy. And she was like, no, I'm a human being and I need a bathroom.
Isn't that part of the challenge too of being a woman, is if we come across as too bold and too strong, then we're the bitch, right? Mm-hmm. But if we are too compassionate, we're seen as weak. Yeah. And we're a pushover.
Yeah.
And it's like, we can't win for losing.
You can't win. And that's what, I love that you brought that up, because I think that is really part of what makes her so remarkable, is she seems to have found the sweet spot. And I wonder if we were talking about her in 1977, if her reputation would be quite the same, or if it's only through her entire body of work that she earned that reputation. But she seems to have hit this sweet spot of being able to communicate decisively and clearly and get results without being seen as either this monster of ego or this hysterical woman. She seemed to have been able to do something that a lot of us have just can't or haven't been able to do, which is earn respect on her own merits as a human being without being objectified or judged as being a ball breaker. Yeah. And I don't know how she did it, man. I still don't know how she did it.
You know, what's interesting too is, should we have to?
No, absolutely we shouldn't. But that's, again, going back to Mickie, you don't complain, you just get up and do it. No, she just wasn't much of a navel gazer. I get the impression that she didn't spend as much time sitting around being pissed off about that as I do. She just very clearly saw that it wasn't okay, and she was going to do something about it. She wasn't worried about punishing anybody for the fact that that's the way it is, although I think she probably did privately hold some grudges, and she probably got her licks in where she had to, but relationship was what this entire industry, and honestly, again, I'm going to give you your flowers for this too, because I think this is why I could never do what you do. I hold a grudge and my face shows it. Like, I am not able to network. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I'm not good at it. I don't want to say I'm not a relationship person, because I absolutely have been able to hold on to some very long-term friendships, and I value those more than almost anything outside of my own family, but it's a very small group of people. This woman was besties with thousands.
Yes.
And probably knew their dogs' names and their, who their kids were going, where their kids were going to school, and their anniversary probably. And, you have to be able to be like that. And it's not a skill that most of us can do.
Thank you so much for that remark. I will say, as someone who is actually quite introverted and has designed my life now to live almost like a hermit, I mean, I count my happiness in how many days I don't have to leave my property.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I count
Same.
happiness.
Yeah.
So, but I think it is something that you do share, and that is an extraordinary heart for and interest in humans as individuals.
Yes.
That's where that stems from, is I know when I go to a networking event, I'm going to have to rest for 2 days afterwards.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine.
But I also know that I'm going to experience so much joy and fulfillment and just intrigue and curiosity by connecting with those humans and really getting to know just a little bit more about who they are.
Yeah.
Maybe I should save this for the next portion, but one of the things that was so incredibly empowering and moving for me is there's a particular investment real estate event that I've been attending every spring for years. And previously I had come as a lender, a financier, because that's where I had been working for decades. And this year I went as a strategic business consultant focused on women's entrepreneurship and empowerment and growth. I had so many women come up to me in hallways and in restrooms and in corners to tell me how much my work was impacting them and their personal lives. And I got to support women, strangers to me, hugging them as they cried. Because they were finding encouragement, they were finding support. And honestly, I was at a point in my development of my company that as I was there at that event, it was, is this really what I need to be doing? I don't know. I feel like I'm shouting into the void, and I don't know if this is landing anywhere. Maybe I am identifying a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. And I came to find so much encouragement that I'm not shouting into the void, and I am not creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. It's just such a quiet problem.
Yeah.
Because so many women don't want to be the ball buster, or don't want to be the dramatic, overly emotional, and so we just sit in our quiet. And we wait for those hallway moments.
And be desperate, looking for those moments of connection. That's awesome. That gives me chills. I'm so glad you had that moment, because that has to be the kind of thing that would keep you going. I don't think either one of us are people that constantly need to have our hand held or anything like that. But everybody, we're human. And sometimes if you feel like your work is important, but you don't feel like you're getting the return after a while, that can be very exhausting, and it can be very confusing and troubling. So I'm glad that you had that. So we are going to start wrapping up our discussion portion here on Mickie, but I do want to share a couple of other things just from this article, this Bloomberg article. This will probably get you a little bit. Mickie, when she passed, she had $48 million in
assets?
Yes, sorry. She had $48 million in assets when she passed, and she left almost all of it to charity.
Yes.
To my delight, one of the things that she cared the most about, much like me, was her little dog. And Monster Girl was her little long-haired chihuahua that I think was 14 when Muriel passed. And I was not able to find why she called her Monster Girl, but I could definitely relate.
Yeah, being a dog owner, I can guess.
Well, June especially, as everybody knows, my dog June she's a special case, and she could definitely, Monster Girl would fit her very, very well. But she left a significant amount of money for the care of Monster Girl, and it made news everywhere that she left.
As I recall, it was $100,000.
Yeah, she left $100,000 for her care. Her friend inherited Monster Girl, but she wanted to make sure that and in addition to that, $10,000 every year to the local veterinary society to make sure that she got the best health care while she was alive, which I'm going to stop here and say that I don't want to get too judgy about this, but it always upsets me when I hear these stories about people that have their pets put to sleep when they die. That just breaks. It's rampant. A lot of people do that. And I don't want to get too judgy about it, but it's always very upsetting to me. I just don't feel like that's a choice I would make. No matter how much my dogs love me, and they do. They are obsessed with me. I don't want their lives to end. If they still have years to live and they still have a quality of life. I mean, there are reasons. Kristen's looking at me with this horrified face.
I am, absolutely. You know what immediately comes to mind is the tradition of like when the pharaohs passed away and their slaves were buried with them.
Right. That's very much the vibe it gives. To be fair, devil's advocate, sometimes it is genuinely because that person is elderly and they have no other family left, and they're afraid that their dog is not going to be taken care, or cat or pet, is not going to be taken care of.
Call me.
Same. I do believe for sure that there are legitimate reasons occasionally for that to happen. But I also believe that sometimes it's genuinely this arrogant belief that your pet is never going to get over you passing away. And I just don't believe that's true. I've had a lot of animals in my life, and I've had a lot of animals who love me very dearly. But if they are cared for by someone else, they grieve. They absolutely will grieve. But if you've given them a good life and they've been protected and pampered and taken care of, if you can arrange for someone, and of course Muriel was very, very wealthy, so she had resources that most of us don't. But I loved the fact that instead of arrogantly taking Monster Girl with her on the way out, she said, you know what, Monster Girl's still healthy. She might have a lot of life left to live. She's a little dog. Sometimes those dogs can live to be 20. I did not Google when Monster Girl passed because I don't want to know. I want to believe she's still sitting in a penthouse somewhere on Park Avenue.
By the way, that was actually Monster Girl 2.
Oh, she had a first Monster Girl?
Oh, that was Monster Girl 2. That was her name, Monster
I love that she even had female dogs. Anyway, she left money for Monster Girl. But in addition to that, she, as we said, she founded financial literacy programs for the schools in New York and beyond that are still impacting people today. Did so much good for a lot of kids out there. She was also affiliated with the Friars Club, the Boy Scouts of America, and the Animal Rescue Fund, which I think she left them something like $10 million or something. Like, she left the bulk of her $48 million to all of these different charities. So she was the proverbial wealthy person that not only did wonderful things throughout her life, but when she passed, she made sure that all that money went back into the world to do good even after she was gone. And man, just, I couldn't imagine a better life.
She truly is an icon to aspire to emulate.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't pick a better role model, and I definitely will be bragging and talking my kids' ear off about her and why more people need to know about her. But before we go and wrap up for dinner, I will say that at her funeral service, Rabbi Peter J. Rubenstein at Central Synagogue, which she had been a member of since 1978, said cancer was the only fight she couldn't win.
Oh, what a great quote.
It is. It broke my heart because I know her. I don't know Mickie, but I know her. I feel like I know her.
Yes.
And I imagine that when she had to accept that this was one battle that she was just not, because we're all going to pass at some point. And when she got to the point, whether it was 80 or 82 or 84 or 86, however old she was, I imagine that was not an easy realization for her to come to. I imagine in her mind it really did feel like a kick in the teeth because she was so used to just being able to barrel down any door that she wanted to. So yeah, that broke my heart a little bit. But we are going to take a bit of a break now, and we are going to go prepare our meal in honor of Mickie Siebert, and we will be right back with you. All right, we are back. We are sitting down to our delicious dinner. And I will tell you, well, actually, Kristen, why don't you tell us, what are we having?
Oh my goodness. We are having a wedge salad we've got some iceberg lettuce. Mine has blue cheese crumbles. Mandy's does not.
Not a fan of the blue cheese.
We have some sliced tomatoes and some fresh fried bacon bits. We also have some medium rare ribeye steaks that are just mouth-watering, and some incredible looking baked potatoes and dirty martinis. Very dirty martinis.
Yeah, and maybe not the best martinis in the world either, because I realized halfway through cooking that we don't have a shaker anymore, so I had to improvise. And just full disclosure, I was not able to find any mention of any food that Mickie preferred for any reason. I mean, like, not even so much as then I had a sandwich. I don't know that the woman ever stopped to eat.
Well, she did remark in her book that
there's a reason I wouldn't know that.
that she ate meat 3 times a day, which was unusual.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Then I picked perfectly.
You did. I assumed that you read the book, and that's why you knew.
Ma'am. No, I went with this series. Sometimes you just are not going to have an actual recipe that person ate or enjoyed. So at that, I default then to, well, what was their lifestyle? She was Wall Street, baby. So I just kind of went with what I like to call the, business guy's dinner, which is a lot of meat. I mean, she seemed like she rolled with them, as you said. She had said that one of the things that she had to learn how to do in addition to cursing was drink them under the table. So I just kind of tried to think about, like, what would they have eaten in, like, The Wolf of Wall Street? Big slab of meat, baked potato, the dirty martini, and I've just never been to a steakhouse that didn't have a great wedge salad, so.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
Also, I think the whole shaken, not stirred only matters to James Bond.
Really?
I don't know. That seems...
Well, to me, it's not the shaken, like, I don't know, like the stupid, you bruise the liquor or whatever. I just like stuff really cold. If I'm going to drink basically straight liquor, I like mine shaken because I want it to have ice crystals, which this does not, but hey. So while we're eating our dinner, Kris, has a lot of knowledge about finance and why it is incredibly important for all of us, but especially for women. So we're going to let her take it over and talk a little bit about what it is that she does and what she thinks more women should know about finance. And I don't know. How do we say this? How do we say this? You guys, you don't know this, but I've had to record this same part like 4 times because every time I try to start, God love June, she'll start freaking out. But I want to hear more about what Kris has to say about finance. We're going to learn. We're about to learn.
Thank you, Mandy. Well, I think the reason that finance is so important to me and I'm so passionate about it is that I grew up very impoverished. We frequently experienced homelessness. We lived in shelters. We lived in cars. We couch surfed. And I understood that when my mom paid the bills, we had a place to live with electricity and water. Mm-hmm. And when she didn't, we did not have a place to live, or we didn't have electricity, or we didn't have water, or all of the above, right? So, I remember one time for a couple of weeks, we actually lived in a mechanic's shop, and we couldn't go there until after everybody had already left for the day, and then we could go and sleep in the lobby, and we had one of those electric skillets, and that's how we would prepare food and clean up anyway, I digress. The point is, I understood how impactful lack of money was from a very young age.
Yeah.
So I was bound and determined that I was going to live my life very differently, and I have. I also understand how incredibly terrifying it can be to not have enough. So I started my banking career in 2008. What a great time to start a banking career.
Yeah.
I was a stay-at-home mom for about 4 years.
So you had no banking career before that?
No.
Wow.
2008.
No way.
Yeah.
That would have only been maybe 2 or 3 years before we met.
Uh-huh.
Did you always have an interest in it? I mean, did you feel like Muriel, like you could just look at numbers and they made more sense to you? Were you good at math?
I took calculus as an elective in high school.
So you do like math.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with you people. I'm just kidding.
No, it's fine.
It's a much more useful skill than being able to name the first 5 female poets and it's going to get you a lot more doors open. But anyway.
I did, yeah. I always liked math, and actually as a child, I was always starting little businesses. I started my first business when I was 8.
Really?
Yes, I knew that I needed money to buy some things that I wanted to buy, so I made bracelets and I sold them to my friends at school. And that was my first business, was when I was 8 years old.
That's incredible.
So I've had, countless businesses since over the years. So I've always had a very entrepreneurial spirit. But one of the things that I did with the money that I earned in one of my businesses, I got a subscription. I got inspiration from Michael J. Fox's character in Family Ties. I got a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. I did not understand what I was reading, but I knew that the information that I wanted was in there. And so I read it religiously.
That's amazing. And I'm going to stop and say to you all that one of the things that I admire so much about Kris is that she will, if she doesn't know what something means when you say it, she will stop you in your tracks and ask you to define that. I think that's great. So many people, like the epitome of stupid, really is acting as if you already know everything. Like there's no growth there. The most intelligent and powerful thing you can do is admit that you don't know and go to an expert and find out and learn from them and admit that you have something to learn from other people. Because if you don't do that, you're just stuck in the same place all the time.
I think we have something to learn from everyone.
Sure.
Everyone has a unique experience that they can share.
And I know you believe that, and I think that's part of why you're successful. But go ahead. So
thank you.
So you got into banking.
Yes, I did. I started as a part-time teller just because I needed health insurance and I wanted a work schedule that was somewhat in alignment with my children's school schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And almost immediately fell in love with helping people with their money. I worked at a bank that was in a quite poor area of the country. It was very rural, and a lot of people were living on government aid and assistance and lots of different programs there. I loved helping people figure out how to manage their money and the emotions, the negative emotions that come along with not having enough.
Yeah.
So
the fear, the hopelessness, the despair.
Yes. And I think one of the things that I see over and over again, in particular with women, well, let me finish this part of the story. I promoted from part-time teller to full-time teller to operations assistant, branch manager, commercial lender, and then underwriter, building a career in investment real estate as I went. So my focus by the time I left banking was financing investment real estate. Then I left banking and I launched my own mortgage brokerage, built it up and sold it, and now I consult.
So what does consulting entail?
Well, helping women, like I said, helping women in particular to discover their unique personal zones of genius and learn how to lean into those. Women in particular are prone to decide that they should be doing everything. Mm-hmm. And part of what I love about the entrepreneurial spirit, and you have this yourself, whether or not you've ever owned a business, is the idea that if someone else can do it, then I can do it.
Yeah.
And not everybody thinks that way.
No, I think a lot of us get paralyzed. It's something that I think I quote this every episode, or at least in quite a few episodes, and I really need to look up who said it again. But it's something along the lines of figure out what you love and do it badly until you can do it well.
Yes.
A lot of people are, again, it's that whole thing. I think it's the same reason that a lot of people are not bilingual, because especially if you're quote unquote smart, it's very difficult to know that people are going to think you're stupid for a while until you get fluent in something. But it's like a muscle, most things in life you have to learn from the ground up, and it's not always going to be intuitive, but if you stick with it, you're usually going to be successful.
Absolutely. So in working with entrepreneurs who believe that if someone else can do it, then they can do it, and probably better, which I do not disagree with, but also focusing on women who are accustomed to having to do everything themselves. That is something that is a societal expectation. Yeah. So we start the approach with, let's focus on the things that you're really great at and love to do, and determine how we can do more of those in your business and less of the other things that, even though you can do, and we know you can do them really well, you don't have to do.
So can you give us an example?
Bookkeeping is the number one thing that most business owners need to delegate immediately.
Girl, I am in the accounting department for my job, accounts payable, and I cannot tell you how many vendors that I am responsible for paying that I wonder how in the world do they stay in business? Because specifically, like, what I deal with is the automotive industry. Well, it's paying bills for like repairs on vehicles and things like that. And a lot of these are just little mom and pop places that they did not get into the business. They got into the business because they love working on cars, not because they were really good at bookkeeping. And they really need, but they're also in that poverty mindset of, saving. And sometimes you save yourself right into the ground because you don't have any skill set at bookkeeping, and you need a professional in there so that you can focus on the things that you enjoy and that you're good at.
One of my favorite examples is talking to a business owner not that long ago, and he does large commercial real estate development. He does deals that are tens of millions of dollars, but he will stop every year for about 7 calendar days to figure out all of his bookkeeping and receipts and things of that nature, dedicated only to his finances, to submit all of that to his CPA so that he can get his tax returns done. And I think, how many millions of dollars is it costing you to save the expense of a bookkeeper?
Yeah. Yeah, and time and energy and lack of your ability to focus on other things. Yeah.
Yeah. The opportunity cost there.
Yeah.
By not doing the thing that you're good at and passionate about, and instead doing this other thing, you're saving thousands that are costing you millions.
Yeah.
So talking about that mindset is generally where we start. The other part of it too is women. Well, first of all, let me quote these statistics for you. This is what really got me started in the Genius Cultivator. 42% of U.S. small businesses are women owned. Only 2% of those businesses ever meet or exceed $1 million in annual revenue, as compared to 14% of not women owned businesses.
Wow.
So we're talking about less than half of all businesses, and less than a fifth, right? 1/7 of the male-owned businesses that meet or exceed $1 million in annual revenue. Additionally, approximately 2% of all venture capital investors are not particularly interested in women-owned businesses, or women are not asking for it. I'm not entirely sure. But when I saw that number 2%, that really made me mad. And I was like, all we have to do to double that is move it 2 points. Mm-hmm. Here's another component, though, that's terrifying to me. Working women in lower and middle income brackets, working women, lower middle, are statistically they statistically repeatedly take on greater than 50% of the household responsibilities. The child rearing, the grocery shopping, the paying the bills, all of the things, right? What's truly remarkable is that working women in high income brackets are more than double likely to take on greater than 50% of the responsibility. So what I did not want to do was help a bunch of women become exhausted millionaires.
Right.
That's not helpful.
Right.
So
they're just working themselves into an earlier grave, and somebody's going to enjoy the fruits of their labor.
Why would I want to help them do that? Mm-hmm. That sounds like a terrible plan. But when we look at so much of the mindset coaching and the business coaching and the retreats and things like that, it's the hustle culture. It's the roar. It's the bro. And the marketing is some guy in a beautiful sports car, convertible sports car, with a beautiful woman sitting with him, and that's
the apex of what he wanted to achieve.
Yes.
Meanwhile, women are trying to create generational wealth for their kids and their families.
Yes.
And
and this is their avatar client. And what they're speaking to is not what women need. Women need rest. Mm-hmm. Women need support. Women need the opportunity to hear their own thoughts.
Right.
That's not what's happening in these business coaching and consulting cultures. Mm-hmm. So I set out to do something very different, by women, for women, to grow women entrepreneurs, for women entrepreneurs to do business with each other, to support each other, and hopefully to eventually become venture capitalists to invest in other women-owned businesses.
So define venture capitalists.
Oh, I have money and I want to invest money in a business to help me make more money, have my money work for me, right? Think Shark Tank. Those are venture capitalists.
Okay.
Shark Tank. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to build. But back to the whole finance and women and money is part of the challenge there, and this all comes together, I promise. Part of the challenge there is that there is so much fear and emotion around women and money by women. Mm-hmm. We've been told, particularly of our generation, right? We've been told all of our lives girls aren't as good at math. Mm-hmm. And girls aren't as smart with money. So much of the marketing and the media that is geared towards women tells us that we are overspenders and that we are poor money managers. And that simply does not bear out.
No.
That statistically is not true, but it's over 70% of the media message that is directed at women about money.
That's infuriating.
Yes.
I don't know how much you read up on this, or probably in that book that I didn't read. Probably was a lot about it because she was passionate about it, but I read several articles where Mickie was talking about something that I find incredibly inspiring about us, but also infuriating. It's what you talked about, the division of labor in this world. She talked about how much more difficult it was. You know, we as women do not give ourselves enough credit for the labor that we do every single day. It's not every household, but the vast majority of households, even for two-income families, the woman is far more likely to have the burden of cleaning the house, getting the kids up in the morning, getting them dressed, getting them fed, taking care of the numerous emails that are going to come through the day about school, and getting them to the places that they need to be. You know, we talked about my husband earlier, and he is in sales and he's phenomenal at what he does. But he also makes a lot more money than I do because he can travel. I was never going to be able to do that and raise children. Now, granted, you know, there are some families where that division is split evenly, but we would not have been able to have the income that we had, and therefore my children would have been robbed of advantages if he didn't take that opportunity. So I just picked up the slack. And so he's a phenomenal dad, but from the time he literally got that job when I was in labor with Ava. I am stretched out on the thing, and he's like, I gotta take this phone call. And he really did. I mean, we were late 20, you know, we had a baby come in, we were mid-20s, we needed the money. But he's been traveling the entire time that we've been parents, and that is why we have had the blessings of some of the economic advantages that we've had. And the reality is that most women are not going to be able to take on those roles. And, you know, people can say, well, then they shouldn't have kids. Well, okay, but then we all cease to exist. This society ceases to exist.
Well, and now we've got messaging coming out about
have more kids,
requiring women to have education about getting married and having children.
Right. That is not an exaggeration. Here in the state of Tennessee, they are talking about putting legislation in place so that it is mandatory to teach in school about homemaking. And why that is important. And as a homemaker myself, I can tell you it is absolutely crucial that children have a safe space to launch from. But if we are really talking about two realities, and only two. We're either talking about a world where women continue to have the onus placed on us for everything, including a world now where we're talking about taking away our reproductive freedoms, which then takes us back to where men get to skip off scot-free every single time they don't feel like taking on the burden of parenthood, but the women will absolutely be not only required to put her life on the line to bring that child here, but then will also be responsible for its upkeep financially, emotionally, physically for the next 18 years at least. In addition to that, we are now trying to take away any kind of social safety net that might be available to that woman. So that's what we're looking at. So we're either talking about a world like that, where women continue to be pulled back into brilliant, intelligent, driven human beings like Mickie Siebert being forced to do nothing with their time but stay in the same four walls. And again, hear me, there are many women that I know who are homemakers, and that is their primary. They do not work outside the home. They're phenomenal at what they do. I want a world where that is absolutely their right to make that choice.
Absolutely.
I would have literally died.
Well, what's interesting to me is they're talking about implementing these programs where girls are required to take this training and education, encouraging them, some might say, propagandizing them to be incubators and never mind their dreams, but take on the responsibility of continuing the human race. What I did not hear was a requirement to put boys through training about how to be men that those women want to reproduce with.
Well, beyond that, I don't even think, honestly, to me, it is yes, you were right. In this weird, bizarre, Handmaid's Tale fantasy that these people want to enact, you would think they would at least be training up these young men to be excellent providers and understand the responsibility that they take on when they engage in sexual activity. You think that at least the hypocrisy wouldn't extend to the fact that they are doing none of that. But even beyond that, saying that world existed, I still find it horrifying, because most of us do not want to live in a world where the only option available to us is to be a homemaker.
Right.
And motherhood, for me, was my goal. It is the thing that I am the most proud of. Again, I chose a very traditional role in many ways because I wanted to be able to work, but also not have to worry about climbing a corporate ladder and not having to worry about, that being the primary. I had jobs where I could, for the first 12 years of my kids' lives, I could bring them to work with me if I needed to. I was very lucky that way. I worked very hard, but I also had taken on roles that I could make motherhood and my family my primary focus. But I shouldn't have to live that life if I have other dreams and goals and aspirations. And again, if I had only stayed home, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say I might not have made it. I need more mental stimulation. I have goals and aspirations and dreams and ideas. I have a mouth that's not going to quit. I don't know that I would, whether it was my hand or someone else's, I just don't think I would survive in a world like that.
Well, let me say, first of all, that I don't want anyone to be hearing that women who desire to stay at home and be a homemaker don't have goals and dreams and aspirations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to put that out there, that nobody here is saying that. The point is, women, we support you being able to do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
And to not be subject to a financial prison.
Right.
That has been thrust upon you.
Right.
And to that end, being able to work or not work, or know your money or not, or whatever the case may be. For example, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was a stay-at-home mom because I had two babies that were 17 months apart, and I couldn't make enough money at the time to pay for daycare.
Right.
So I stayed home and had a couple of different businesses going from my home.
Right.
But I shared with you that I started in banking because I wound up divorced against my wishes.
Right.
I was doing the traditional wife thing, staying home with the babies, making money from home, doing all the things. And my then husband decided that he wanted to do something different. And I didn't get a say in the matter. I had to go to work.
Yeah.
I had to figure out how to do it. And something that I took pride in was that we actually were eligible for food stamps, and I felt like I didn't need food stamps because we were doing okay. And so I didn't ever take food stamps, which is not to say I wanted them to be saved for people who needed them.
Right.
And I didn't feel like we needed them.
Right.
Now, we did have WIC, but I do know that one of the reasons that I was able to work is because of the Head Start program.
Yeah. Well, and before you move on to that, I want to say that whether or not you actually had to take advantage of that 10 Care or the food stamp program, what have you, our larger point here is that all of these social safety nets are incredibly important. You have these men out here talking about wanting us to get back into the kitchen and the bedroom and start popping out all of these babies, but they don't want to do anything for women who are in financial straits, whether it's because their spouse doesn't make enough money or their spouse has just decided that they don't want to play house anymore and have left them for greener pastures, or died for that matter.
That's true.
They want to take away any and all social safety nets that might help that woman to get a leg up to be able to provide for these kids that they want her to have.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's it, right? Well, I read an article today that part of the big beautiful bill is gutting the funding for Head Start. And I almost wept when I read that because my second child went to Head Start for a couple of years until she was eligible to go to she was old enough to go to public school. And I thought, I could not have taken care of my children. I could not have provided for my children without food stamps or Head Start. I was going to need one or the other.
Right.
And now they're both.
Right. And the big, first of all, and anybody that's listening to this that doesn't know the statistics about really how much money we're talking about when you look at the federal budget, it's a drop in the bucket. Mm-hmm. And it provides so much needed assistance to accomplish these goals that they say that they're really important to them about the sacredness of the family and security of children and all of the things that they say that they're standing for. These programs are essential for the well-being of these kids, these vulnerable kids who didn't luck out and get born with the silver spoon in their mouths. You're pro-birth. That means that you want that child to get here, and then if you want to call yourself beyond pro-birth and truly pro-life, you have to care about the world that those children are coming into. You can be mad at the parents all you want and second guess whatever financial decisions they may have had, but the kid didn't ask for that. Whatever your feelings are about it, the kid didn't ask for that. So you want a world where these children are to come and be born hell or high water, then why do you not want to do anything to provide any kind of a social safety net to make sure that those kids have a fighting chance in this world? And again, statistically, the price for those programs is minuscule when you put it up against defense or to tax. At any rate, I'm not going to go too far.
The annual budget now for ICE is greater than the annual military budget for most nations in the world. Right,
and they're not getting any more deportations than they're getting fewer deportations than Obama did, and barely more than Biden did. It's a complete waste of time. It's a fear tactic, and it's actively taking money and food out of the mouths of children.
Literally.
Yeah. Which is what they say that this is all for, is the future of this country. They are actively doing everything to make sure that these kids and their mothers are not able to function in any real way in this world.
Well, and another something that I've observed is people talking about all the able-bodied people who are on Medicaid programs, and aren't we glad that DOJ cut that out? And quite honestly, I'm not familiar enough with the legislation to be able to comment on the truth of that or not. But it immediately occurred to me that twice in my life, I have been an able-bodied person on a Medicaid program. When I was in foster care and I was a ward of the state, that was a Medicaid program that provided for my health care, dental care, vision care. I've worn glasses since I was 10 years old. So all of that was true. And then I found out I was pregnant with my second child approximately 3 weeks after I'd lost my job. Well, I wasn't going to be able to get any sort of health insurance through a new employer, knowing that I was already pregnant. That was before the Affordable Care Act, and that was immediately...
Which they're trying to roll back.
Right. That was immediate ineligibility, as if you were already pregnant.
Yeah, I remember the bad old days.
Yeah. So I was that whole pregnancy and delivery, and then my daughter... After she was born, until we could make appropriate private health insurance arrangements, that whole pregnancy was a Medicaid provided prenatal care and delivery, and I was an able-bodied person on a Medicaid program.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up too, because that was the other point that I wanted to make, is that the myth of the welfare queen is just that. It is a myth. Are there people that have learned to game certain systems? Absolutely. But those people are not becoming millionaires. They're not, in by and large, they're not living healthy, satisfied lives. And the amount of money that they are burdening the taxpayer is minuscule. The vast majority of people on social programs are on them for a very brief period of time to get them from one point to the next. That is why we needed a social service network that this all kind of stems back to the Depression, when people were literally dying in the streets because they had no one to take them in to take care of them, and that's where Social Security came from. And I don't know, man. You can wish that we lived in a strict libertarian world where everybody was able to provide for themselves, but it is not the reality. It has never been the reality.
Well, I think there's this broad assumption, too, that people are, like you said, the welfare queen, that people are taking advantage of these social safety nets because, they're on drugs or they're doing this and I'm here to state, I was doing none of those things.
Right.
I was doing all of the things that y'all told me to do.
And you still need
help.
And
guess what? It didn't work out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Are there those people? Absolutely. But they're a much smaller number, and it's much more difficult than people think to game the system that way, because there are already safety nets in place to ensure that you cannot take advantage of the system for your entire life. To wrap it up, I would like to know, Kristen, is there anything you want to say? Like, do you want to share your socials? Do you want to talk about where you can be reached?
Absolutely. I do want to say, I didn't get to back around to this, but money is a tool. Money is not something that we have to have emotions or fear or sadness or terror about. If you think about it as a tool, how do you feel about the hammer in the toolbox in your closet? Beautiful. You don't have any emotions about that hammer.
Yeah.
Money is a tool, just like your hammer.
So no need to feel shame around the issue. No need to feel embarrassment or confusion or anything. You just learn to handle the tool because it's necessary.
Yes.
Yeah, we can all pretend that it's not, but it is. And not to get back on the soapbox about capitalism, and I know this is controversial for some people, but I still am a capitalist. I do not believe in laissez-faire capitalism. I do believe that there should be guardrails, but I also do believe that it is still possible, because I've seen it in my own family, for people to work hard and make a better life for themselves in this country.
I started with less than nothing.
Yep.
Less than nothing. No family support. I also did not finish college. Thank you, Mickie, for validating that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so you can find me at thegeniuscultivator.com is my website for my strategic business consulting. You can also find there a link to my virtual community for women entrepreneurs, which is called the Genius Network. And it is to grow and design all of these needs for women in particular that are necessary. Also, at thegeniuscultivator.com, you will find my financial literacy course coming up starting in September.
Oh.
So that is a 10-week group course that we're going to dig into each participant's own personal finances. We're not going to use that ugly word that starts with a B and ends in budget. It is your personal plan for financial abundance. So we plan.
I think that's so smart, because it absolutely, budget has such a loaded word, but yeah, it's important to put two and two together of why is the budget important.
Well, and budget connotates restriction, right? Whereas plan connotates intent.
Yeah, and grow. Like, that it's your tool, that your finances are your ticket to where you want to go.
Yes.
Beautiful. You're so smart.
Oh, thanks.
And we're going to share all of that when I get ready to do the socials for this episode.
My Facebook is there, my Instagram is there, my LinkedIn is there, my YouTube is there. I also have a YouTube channel. So find me everywhere, and please let me know how I can help, because that's what I want to do.
Well, this has been awesome. I have really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us. Our sources for this episode are Changing the Rules, Adventures of a Wall Street Maverick by Muriel Siebert. Some of us read it. One of us didn't. And then several lovely articles that I found about Muriel. One is her biography on the National Women's History Museum website, and also the two articles, as I mentioned, one was her obit and another was an article writing up her funeral service, which was just really touching and inspiring, that were both on Bloomberg.com. I will post links to all of that in the show notes on Facebook. If you would like to get in touch with me or leave some feedback or just say hi, you can email or send me a voice message as an attachment to dinnerforher@gmail.com. You can visit my Facebook page, where there'll be a post for the next episode, and you can leave feedback in the comments section or send me a messenger through Facebook message. I can be found on TikTok and Instagram at Dinner for Her. Still working on being more active there, guys. Social media is not my thing. I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a review, comment, like, and or share on your podcasting listening app of choice. I want to give a big thank you, as always, to Mark and Pirate Core Entertainment for all the hard work he does and for giving me this platform. Please visit the Pirate Core website and their Facebook page, where you can find this podcast and many more, including What's On Tonight, my other project that I co-host with my best friend Becky. It also has its own Facebook page. What's On Tonight is a spoiler-filled podcast about TV, movies, and more. Right now, I am on hiatus, but Becky is covering, with an awesome assortment of co-hosts, the first season of Paramount Plus's show, Dexter Resurrection. I will be back in the saddle with her this fall, though, to cover the brand new HBO series, It, Welcome to Derry. It is a prequel to the movie It. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and while I don't dig on serial killers, which is why I'm not covering Dexter, I very much love spooky, especially killer clowns. So I'm very excited about that one. We're going to have a lot of fun with it, so I will keep you posted on that. Check us out there and join the conversation. And lastly, I want to thank you, Kristen. I don't know if you realize how inspiring I find you. Like me, Muriel, and frankly most of the world, you've had some hard knocks in life. And I know she talked about this a little bit, guys, but she really did not tell you the 10th of it. And if you only knew what she's overcome. Every time you've been knocked down, you always rise up swinging, and usually with a brand new plan on how to make the world a better place. One financial victory at a time. Mickie would be so honored to know you, and she would recognize her kindred spirit and be proud of the woman. And as usual, we are going to wrap things up with words of wisdom from our guest of honor. So, as Mickie Siebert once said, when a door is hard to open and if nothing else works, sometimes you just have to rear back and kick it open. Thank you, everyone, and please come back next time to see what incredible, powerful woman will be joining us for dinner. Yay! Now you know why it's hard to eat when you do this. All that gabbing. Bye.